Count something for me. Count the systems you own for organizing your life. The productivity apps, the planner you bought in January, the color-coded calendar, the Notion dashboard you've rebuilt from scratch twice, the 12-month roadmap for the thing you're finally going to start. Now count how many times this week you touched the actual thing. Not the plan for the thing, the thing. That silence is what this video is about. So here's the thesis, and I'm not going to soften it. You are not preparing, you're hiding. Somewhere along the way, your planning stopped being a runway and became a shelter. A place where you get all the feeling of progress with none of the risk of failure. And the reason you can't see it is that hiding has never looked this responsible. Nobody stages an intervention for the person with the beautiful spreadsheet. You know the versions, the 7th tutorial on a skill you've never once attempted, researching the best camera for a channel that has 0 uploads, the business plan entering its 3rd year of revision for a business that has never had a customer. And hear this before you close the video in self-defense. This is not a discipline problem. That diagnosis has failed you every time because it's wrong. This is a reward problem. Your brain chooses planning over action because planning, chemically, is the better deal. By the end of this video, you'll see the rigged table you've been playing at and exactly where the exit is. 3 things to plant before we start. First, the internet's most repeated piece of goal advice, announce your goal, make it public, has been tested in a lab. It reduced the amount of work people actually did, and it backfires hardest on the people who care the most. I'll show you the study. Second, researchers can watch motivation physically leave your body while you fantasize about achieving your dream. Not metaphorically, it shows up on a blood pressure cuff. And third, stay for this one, there is a single sentence, about 30 seconds to write, no app required, that in a controlled study took follow-through from roughly 1 person in 3 to 91%. It is the least inspiring sentence you will ever write. That's exactly why it works. Let's open the simulator. Start with the honest question, why does planning feel this good? A fresh page, a clean system. The moment the whole project lies in front of you in tidy rows, you can feel your shoulders drop. That's not tidiness you're enjoying, that's reward. You've heard this explained as a dopamine hit, and I want to sharpen that because the pop science version is sloppy. Dopamine isn't really a pleasure chemical. Decades of reward research say it's closer to an anticipation signal, the chemistry of wanting, not having. It surges on the promise of progress, on the forecast, before any verdict comes in. Now look at what a plan is. A plan is pure forecast. It is anticipation distilled, with the verdict removed. Act in the real world, and there's a settling of accounts. You publish, and people shrug. You launch, and nobody buys. Reality grades your forecast, and sometimes the grade hurts. But a plan can't be graded. Right up until the moment you execute it, a plan is flawless. The only thing that can break one is contact with reality. So your brain has discovered a casino that always pays out. Planning delivers the anticipation reward every single time, and the one event that could turn the reward into a loss, action, is the one event planning lets you postpone indefinitely. You're not weak for pulling that lever. The lever was engineered to be pulled. And it gets worse, because the payout isn't just pleasant, it's sedating. Here's the blood pressure cuff I promised you. In 2011, Heather Capps and Gabrielle Oettingen published 4 studies with a title that should be printed on every vision board. Positive fantasies about idealized futures sap energy. They had people vividly imagine achieving what they wanted, the idealized outcome, and measured energization the hard way. Systolic blood pressure, the body's readiness to act. The fantasizer's blood pressure went down. They reported less energy. They put in less effort afterward, and it was worst precisely when the fantasy touched a need they actually had. Think about what that means. The vivid experience of already having it is close enough to the real thing that your body stands down. You dreamed it. Some ancient accounting system marked it partially received, and the machinery meant to chase it relaxed. Dreaming isn't fuel. Dreaming is a sedative with excellent branding. Before you delete every visualization from your life, a flag because this channel has a rule about half-truths. Visualization isn't dead, it's aimed wrong. In 1999, Pham and Taylor split college freshmen before a midterm. One group visualized getting the A, the outcome. The other visualized the process, themselves studying, where, and when. The outcome group got the warm feeling. The process group studied more, worried less, and scored higher on the actual exam. Simulate the work and you prepare for the work. Simulate the trophy and you just spend the reward early. Which brings us to the shopping, the new app, the better notebook, the course you bought at midnight. There's a name for this in psychology, symbolic self-completion. When an identity matters to us, writer, founder, runner, we can claim it two ways, through the work or through the symbols of the work. And the brain, being efficient and a little corrupt, accepts the symbols. Buy the running shoes and you are, in some small ledger entry, already a runner. The purchase pays you an identity, instantly, with none of the sweat. That's why the productivity stack keeps growing while the project doesn't. Every tool is a small identity dividend. None of it is production. So here's your self-test, and I'll come back to it. When did you last touch the actual thing? Not the plan for the thing, not the system for the plan, the thing. Hold your answer. It's about to get more uncomfortable. Because there's a version of the trap that doesn't even look like planning. It looks like learning. One more tutorial, one more book, one more podcast episode by someone who did the thing, consumed by someone who hasn't started it. Research is the perfect hiding place because from the outside and from the inside, it's indistinguishable from diligence. You're not procrastinating, you're being thorough. In 2018, Michael Curtis and Ed O'Brien tested exactly that. People watched someone perform a skill, dart throwing, the tablecloth pull, moonwalking, either once or many times. The repeat watchers became measurably more confident they could do it themselves. They could feel the competence accumulating with every viewing. Then, they had to actually do it. They were no better at all. Watching had inflated the feeling of skill and delivered none of the substance. A performance shows you the smooth, edited surface, while doing it requires the 1,000 micro-corrections the video can't transmit. The paper's title says it perfectly. Easier seen than done. That's your tutorial habit, measured. Every video makes you feel closer to ready. The feeling is real. The readiness is not. You're in what I'd call the competence loop. Consume, feel smarter, feel almost ready, notice a gap, consume again. The loop generates confidence the way a treadmill generates distance. The number goes up and you're in the same room. And it matters to say how ordinary this is. Psychology has a name for the space you're stuck in, the intention-behavior gap. And it is the most crowded room in the field. Across studies, roughly half the people who sincerely intend to act never do. Researchers even have a label for them: inclined abstainers. Fully motivated, fully informed, zero movement. Motivation was never the missing ingredient. Now, the study I planted in the hook, because there's one more way to feel like you're moving without moving, and it's the one the internet explicitly tells you to do. Announce the goal. 2009. Peter Goldwitzer and colleagues in psychological science, when intentions go public. They worked with law students who had identity-level goals, not "I'll go to the gym," but "I am becoming a lawyer." Each student wrote down concrete intentions, the studying they'd do, the cases they'd read. For some, the experimenter noticed the intention, read it, acknowledged it. For others, it went unseen. Then they measured behavior. How hard the students worked over the following week, whether they seized chances to act in the lab. The students whose intentions had been seen did less, meaningfully less. And the detail that should raise the hair on your arms, the effect held specifically for the students most committed to the identity. The more becoming a lawyer mattered, the more the acknowledgement hurt their follow-through. Why? Because identity goals run on evidence, and the brain accepts social evidence. When another person registers, "This is someone becoming a lawyer," that registration is itself a small attainment of the identity. The audience paid you. The announcement post, the bio update, Each one delivers a slice of the identity you were supposed to earn with work. You've been paid before production, and paid workers slow down. The nuance, so this doesn't become a cheap myth bust, accountability isn't dead. The backfire is specific to identity claims, what you're becoming. Commitments to actions with a witness, ask me Friday whether I sent the draft, carry no identity payout, only an obligation. Announce deadlines, not dreams. So look at the ledger honestly. The research pays you in felt competence. The tools pay you in identity. The announcement pays you in acknowledgement. By the time you sit down to actually work, you've already been paid 3 times. What exactly is left to chase? Now the deepest layer, the one underneath the dopamine in the tutorials, the fear. Here's the cruel geometry of starting anything. The version of your project that lives in your notes is perfect. It's perfect for the same reason ghosts don't age. It isn't real. It's made of intention and description, and intention doesn't have typos. The moment you begin, the first paragraph, the first recording, the first prototype, you replace a flawless, imaginary thing with a clumsy, real one. And that swap hurts, because it feels like the project just got worse. It didn't. It got real. But your brain compares the shaky first attempt to the shining spec sheet, scores it as a collapse, and quietly concludes that the way to keep the project perfect is to keep it imaginary. Underneath that is an equation most of us installed young, somewhere around the first report card. Ability equals worth. If the work is judged, I am judged. And if that's the equation you're running, then a real attempt is a gamble with your own value on the table, while an unstarted project is a safe deposit box. As long as you never fully try, I could have remains unfalsifiable. Potential is the only asset that grows by never being spent. It's also fake. Psychology caught this move in the lab almost 50 years ago, and the experiment is a classic. 1978, Burgess and Jones. They gave people a test, told them they'd aced it, but rigged it so some of them had aced unsolvable problems. That group knew, deep down, they couldn't explain their own success. Then, everyone was offered a choice of 2 drugs before a retest. One said to enhance performance, one said to impair it. The people whose success felt like a fluke chose the impairing drug. Sit with that. Facing a test that might expose them, they reached for a handicap. Because if you fail with the drug in your system, the drug failed, not you. Your ability remains officially unmeasured, and unmeasured means intact. One honest flag. In the original experiments, the clear effect showed up in the men, but the strategy it uncovered, self-handicapping, has been documented across decades of research since. The night before the interview, someone stays up until 3. The week of the launch, someone reorganizes the entire file system. And endless preparation is the most respectable handicap ever invented. I'm still in the planning phase is the one form of not trying that earns approval. It's choosing the impairing drug and being called responsible for it, which reveals what the overcomplicated plan is actually for. You know the one. 40 steps, 3 phases, contingencies for the contingencies. That's not rigor. That's an impossible standard, engineered, sincerely, unconsciously, to stay unmeetable. Because a plan you can never finish preparing is a start you can never be blamed for missing. The plan isn't the path to the work. The plan is the excuse for its absence. The research on perfectionism backs the pattern. It's specifically perfectionistic concerns, the fear of judgment kind, not high standards themselves, that predict procrastination. The standards aren't the problem. The standards are the shield. The tragedy is that the shield works. It really does protect you from being judged on a mediocre first attempt. It just also protects you from ever having a second one. Now let's put the whole machine on the table, because the full picture is also the absolution. Start with the finding that reframes everything. In 2013, Fuchsia Sirwa and Timothy Pitchell pulled together the modern research on procrastination and landed on a conclusion the productivity industry still hasn't absorbed. Procrastination is not a time management problem. It's an emotion regulation problem. When a task carries bad feelings, uncertainty, exposure, possible failure, avoiding it is a mood repair strategy. The relief is immediate and real. The cost is invoiced to a stranger called your future self. You don't procrastinate because you're lazy. You procrastinate because it works for the next 20 minutes, which is the only timescale the mood system cares about. Now, here's what makes the planning loop the most sophisticated procrastination ever devised. It repairs your mood using the goal itself. Ordinary procrastination gets caught. Scroll instead of working, and some part of you files the charge. The guilt arrives with the relief. But plan instead of working, research instead of working, optimize the system instead of working, and the avoidance is dressed in the goal's own clothing. You escaped the project by working on the project. There's nothing to catch. It's money laundering for avoidance, and the books are clean. And there's one more gear, and if you've been with this channel a while, you already know its name. Last video, I showed you a study called Consider It Done, Masicampo and Baumeister, 2011. An unfinished task intrudes on your attention until you make a specific plan for it, and then the intrusions stop, even though the task is still sitting there, untouched. The brain's tracking system doesn't verify completion, it verifies decidedness. Decided reads as done. Last time, that was the good news. It's how a to-do list buys you a quiet night. Here's the invoice. A verification system that can't tell decided from done can be fed decisions instead of deeds, forever. Every planning session genuinely discharges the tension of the unstarted project. The itch that should be driving you to act is being scratched by the act of arranging. The alarm is real, the loop keeps hitting snooze, and the snooze button is shaped like a roadmap. So assemble it. Anticipation reward with the verdict removed. The casino that always pays. Identity income from the tools, the symbols, the announcements. Paid before production. Mood repair that hides inside the goal itself. Undetectable. Zero risk of judgment. The shield. And the tension release of decided impersonating done. The snooze. 5 payouts, every planning session, guaranteed. Against that, action offers, uncertain reward, real exposure, and the strong possibility of being bad at the thing in front of witnesses. You didn't lose a fair fight against your own laziness. You were playing a rigged table. 5 guaranteed payouts against 1 uncertain one. Anyone would sit there for years. Most people do. But run the audit. The loop has paid you in felt progress, felt competence, identity, relief, and safety. 5 currencies. Notice the one thing that has never once come out of the machine. The thing. The simulator pays out everything except the flight. The plan is comfortable. It was built to be comfortable. It's also where your life is currently parked. So how do you get out? Without torching your calendar apps and pretending just take action is advice. Not by planning less, exactly. By changing formats. Everything you've seen today indicts one kind of planning. Call it simulation planning. Outcome fantasies, roadmap aesthetics, infinite research, identity announcements. But the same research found the other kind. Contact planning. Planning whose only output is a scheduled collision with reality. 3 moves. Move 1. Name the obstacle. The fix for fantasy isn't to stop imagining the goal. It's to make the fantasy pay rent. Gabrielle Uttingen, the researcher who caught fantasies lowering blood pressure, spent 20 years building the antidote. Mental contrasting. Picture the outcome you want vividly for a moment. Then immediately name the specific internal obstacle standing between you and it. Not the economy. Yours. I open the laptop and check email instead. I redraft instead of sending. That 1-2 punch changes what the dream is. Fantasy alone is consumption, the sedative from part 1. Fantasy plus obstacle is a problem, and brains engage with problems. In Uttingen's studies, contrasting energized exactly the people fantasy had sedated. The dream stops being a place you visit and becomes a thing in your way, which is the first time it can move. Move 2. Write the sentence. The one from the hook. It has a boring name, an implementation intention, and a boring format. If it is this time, in this place, with this trigger, then I do this specific physical action. If it's Tuesday at 7 and I've cleared the dinner table, then I open the file and write 1 paragraph. That's it. That's the whole technology. Now the receipts.
In 2002, Milne, Orbell, and Sheeran gave people who already wanted to exercise a strong motivational intervention. About a third of them followed through, the intention-behavior gap in its natural habitat. A second group got the same motivation plus 30 seconds writing one if-then sentence about when and where. 91%. Not a special population, not an app. One sentence and follow-through nearly tripled. And it's not one lucky study. A meta-analysis of 94 experiments found the same medium to large jump across domains. The reason it works is the reason it feels like nothing. The sentence doesn't negotiate with your feelings. It moves the start decision out of the moment, out of the exact minute when the fear from part 3 shows up to renegotiate, and hands it to the environment. Tuesday, 7, cleared table. The situation starts the work. You don't have to win an argument with yourself to begin. Notice what the sentence refuses to give you. No vision, no identity, no dopamine, nothing to announce. It is planning stripped of every payout that made the loop addictive, which is exactly why the loop can't absorb it. Move 3, the ugly first rep. Within 48 hours of your if-then trigger, produce the worst version of the thing. 20 minutes, cap it. One bad paragraph. One awkward recording you never publish. One prototype held together with tape. The goal is not quality. The goal is contact, because action is the only thing that updates the fear. No amount of planning can teach your nervous system that a mediocre first attempt doesn't kill you. One ugly rep can. It's exposure therapy for the ego. And the ugly rep does something subtler. It swaps the flawless imaginary project for a real one. That stings. That's the part 3 swap. But a rough real thing can be improved, and an imaginary perfect thing can only be maintained. You've traded a museum piece for a workbench. The museum was safer. The workbench is the only place anything gets built. Then, one standing rule so the loop can't regrow. The planning budget. A plan may only exist if its output is a physical action scheduled within 48 hours. And there is no second planning session until reality has changed because of the first. New tools, new research, new roadmaps, all of it now has to be earned by contact. You'll be shocked how little planning survives that rule. You'll also be shocked how little you miss it.
Fold it up. Planning feels like progress because it pays out everything progress pays. Anticipation, identity, mood repair, release tension. Minus the one ingredient that made progress feel risky, the verdict. Fantasy sedates measurably. Research inflates confidence without touching competence. Announcements pay you an identity before the work exists. Perfect plans are shields. Standards no first attempt could survive, protecting a self-worth that got welded to performance somewhere around your first report card. And the whole loop hides inside the one place nobody would think to look for avoidance: effort toward the goal. You were never lazy. You were collecting 5 guaranteed payouts instead of one uncertain one, like any well-functioning brain would. The exit isn't discipline, it's switching formats. From planning that simulates the goal to planning that schedules contact with it. Obstacle, sentence, ugly rep. And now the confession this video owes you. For the last 20 minutes, watching this has felt like working on your problem. You learned the mechanisms, you nodded at the studies. Somewhere in there, your brain quietly filed this under progress on the project and paid you for it. Feel that little glow of about to change? That's the exact chemical this entire video was about. Right now, this video is one more tutorial, the 7th one from the cold open, and I am part of your loop. There is exactly one way to take me out of it. Tonight, pick the project. You know which one. It's the one that flinched when I said, still in the planning phase. Write one if-then sentence for tomorrow. Real time, real place, real physical action, 20 minutes or less. Then tomorrow, before you consume anything else about the topic, no video, no article, no new app, do the ugly rep. Make the worst version. Let it be bad on purpose. You are not allowed to judge it. You are only allowed to have made it. That's the whole assignment. One sentence tonight, one ugly rep tomorrow. The plan doesn't need you anymore. The thing does. Tell me in the comments, What's the project you've been planning the longest? And how long has it been in the planning phase? Months and years accepted without judgment. This is an amnesty, not a confession booth. I read every one.